Hey, you know what's funny? I really do not like watermelon.
What?
Have you ever sprinkled salt
Like-
on it? Because if it don't have salt, then it's not good.
Or like
Yeah,
a little.
but and if you have to sprinkle salt on it, it ain't good.
Yeah, but sprinkle salt on it, it's so refreshing in the summer.
Yes.
You know, it's also water. Water is super refreshing as well.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
Tequila too.
exactly.
Do you not like water-based food? Like, do you not like celery?
Oh yeah, this is our thing, right? We had this whole debate.
I was not in this
Like-
debate.
Yeah, you were. You were like, I like wet food. You said that you like wet food versus dry food.
Yes, I don't like dry food.
Yeah, and
Yep.
and I was saying I'm not a fan of like food that's a little bit too moist.
Yep. I forgot all about that. Yeah, like you said, like you don't like oatmeal, and I love oatmeal.
I don't know. I said I like drier oatmeal. You like moist
No,
ass
like-
oatmeal,
Mushy.
Mine needs to be like runny.
just liquidy.
Yes.
That's liquidy moist oatmeal is akin to trash.
Why is like I've never associated oatmeal as being moist? Like why?
I mean, that's watermelon too. Think about it. You're just eating something that's made savory but still moist because you put salt.
I love that we start Brandbeats ridiculous every week.
Made
Hey,
savory.
Oh, it's live already. So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah,
like,
we're live.
it's the idea of salty moistness.
We are live.
Moistness. Oh my god. Kick us off, bruh.
Yeah, on that note,
Again, there's nothing really to be kicked off other than welcome back to another episode of Brandbeats. We're just continuing to have a dialogue around just culture and society. It's what Brandbeats has always been. It's what Brandbeats always will be. And again, it's like this idea of just extending the conversation every week, creating space just for conversation. I keep saying conversation. I'm out of it. I've talked a lot today and given a lot of presentations. So there is something I wanted to kick off and first say, besides the whole thing with Wayfarer. It's about Kanye West. I think I just wanted to I think that's just the first thing I wanted to hit on, is that Kanye West running for president is the scariest thing in the world for me. I have always admired or loved the dude beside everything that he said, but the fact that he is every space he's enters into, he kind of changes and shifts and questions what it should be and questions the makeup of all of those spaces. He also just doesn't care about the normal way of going about things and sort of just goes full heads on into like shifting and changing whatever space he's in. Those same reasons are why he shouldn't be a president in my eyes. So I'm just saying, to kick this off, if anybody is listening yet, and I'll probably say it again at the end, just don't vote for him, because all it's going to do is divide. It's just going to divide the vote, and then we're going to have Trump in office again.
Yep.
But like,
Because,
so
like,
you're not
none of
scared
the-
of having Biden or Trump? Like they're not as equally, if not
Oh, dude.
worse, than Kanye
both.
West?
I'm saying Kanye West won't win. That's for sure. Which means the vote for the Democrats is just going to be divided, whereas the vote for Republicans is just going to be solid. And
But that's just
he's
assuming
gonna-
that we're going to vote for Biden, because I ain't excited about him either.
gosh.
Like,
I mean,
And then we also talked about maybe DE&I just runs as a collective on the platform of "Give Me My Money" in honor of great Rihanna.
mhm.
So yeah, this was a really weird way to kick off this Brandbeats. But yes, somebody else take this.
We haven't done intros yet, Erwin.
Oh
We
yeah.
here.
Yeah, we're here.
We here.
I'm here.
The rent's too damn high. I'm Erwin. work at Basic.
I'm JoJo. I work at Basic too.
You guys can say something else on the second part.
I'm Lindsay.
Juanita.
Eric, I also work at Basic.
Melon.
That's Melon.
Oh.
He does not work at Basic, unfortunately.
He sleeps all day.
What a life. I would like to go back to Kanye.
All right, let's do it.
Because Lindsay and I had this talk earlier, and I just like, I do not want Kanye to be my president. Let's make this clear. But if I have to say, I am not surprised that he's running for president, and I'm also not going to X him out because Kanye, for me, has done way more for me than Trump has, and as well as Biden. Like, I'm not excited or moved or anything that Biden has done or said. And I think when it comes to Kanye and me coming from a position of understanding, or at least trying to understand what it means to be bipolar, and him being honest and out about him being bipolar, like, we know that there's two sides of him. I don't think he's crazy. My issue is that he says a lot of things that are right, and then he ends it with some dumb shit. So it's like, he brings up issues that I can understand, that I can relate to, like him saying like, oh, Planned Parenthood is put into places, in the Black communities or colored communities by white supremacists. I can see his point there, but then he leads it up with some like Christian stuff that just like, oh fuck, like you should have just stopped there and kind of built off of why that is, or why you think that. Or like when he said the whole comments about, slavery, people took it out of context, because I even think, and I was telling Lindsay to this day, like a lot of that is true, because we still kind of do have a slavery mindset. I mean, like, we conform to a lot of beliefs that was from that time, and it's been embedded in that. So I do believe a lot of what he says is right. It's just his delivery is just kind of trash. And at the same time too, it's like, if it wasn't for him and his wife, we wouldn't have a lot of Black people out of jail right now. And so I have to give him credit for a lot of that too. Like, Trump has not been in the media for, pedophilia. He has not been in the media for raping women. Like, I think he upholds qualities that I like the bare minimal, like the bare minimum of a president. You know what I mean? I think he at least has that. And so for me to say, like, just because he's crazy, well, Trump is fucking crazy too. He's just not diagnosed with bipolarism. I mean, like, Kanye speaks on it. So I struggle with saying, like, he's, just because people hate him for his words, his actions hasn't completely made me cross him out. He's an opportunist, but who isn't? Yeah.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think he's amazing in the space that he's in. Yeah. But I feel like Kanye West as a person, just like Trump as a person, needs child conductors and needs walls in order to like it's like, just let them free in their own space. Let Kanye West free in his own space and let him do whatever he's doing. Like, even the fact that he's trying to create more opportunities here by shifting how his shoes are actually made so that it can be produced here, and looking at the dyeing process and how you make that more sustainable. Like, I think he's doing a lot of stuff that is like super innovative and special within the different spaces he's working in. And I think he's allowed that because he's allowed to fail, and he's allowed to like have that flexibility. Whereas like when you're president, I feel like we don't really have room at this point for experimentation and like failure, because I feel like as a country and how we're viewed within the world, that's so tenuous right now that we need some sort of familiarity before we then break it again.
So who are we gonna get that from though?
Me. I'm gonna run.
You and your t-shirts. That's a solution. Yeah.
Just to be like abundantly clear here, like, y'all, like, you don't want him to be your president though. Like, I just need you all to be abundantly clear on that.
No, I don't.
Because sure, Kanye is just like, oh yeah, like they're gonna microchip us and shit's in vaccines, and they're gonna like put shit into our bodies, and like he's saying stuff like this, but what is Kanye talking about? Like, me as an American citizen, what is he going to do for me as an American citizen? What is his platform? Does he have a platform that he's talking about? You're about to try to attempt to run a nation. What are you going to try and do? Yeah, your wife is getting black men out of jail. Getting black men out of jail is different than actual prison reform. Is he going to put those into law? Is he going to make that his agenda? Like, Kanye hasn't said shit about what his actual platform will be. He's just talking about, I don't want this shit to happen, and this is happening, and that's happening. Yeah. I can't listen to somebody who is just rattling off how he feels versus how are you going to make this better? Because right now, things are not going well for a lot of people in America. So for you to come in and try and disrupt a vote, no, like Biden is not the candidate I want. And I watched, Jojo, I told you to watch it today. I watched the Patriot Act, and Hassan Minhaj said it the best. We do not vote based on morals and values anymore. We vote based on hate. We vote based on how much we hate the other candidate. So we are sucked into voting somebody who doesn't stand for our morals. So I have an issue with Kanye trying to come in and just like disrupt voting when there are still people out there who like want actual change to happen.
But are y'all going to vote for those people? Because I'm not going to vote for Trump or Biden. So then who do I have?
No, vote green, third party. Okay, we're in California.
That's what I mean. It's like, I hear you, what you're saying, and I agree with that. But like, I strongly disagree with these other candidates. So then like, what are we going to do? Because I agree with you, like we should be able to pick other, options, but we don't have it. It's literally those two.
I mean, we're not meant to be, we should not be and not meant to be a two-party like country. Like we should not be that. It's just a sad reality that we are. So I mean, vote your conscience, like vote whoever you want to vote for. People are probably going to kill me for this, but California, it don't matter. Like we're blue through and through. We're not changing anytime soon. So, it's going to be blue no matter what. It's what matters in the swing states.
I will say the thing about Kanye is, and the thing that's weird to me is because I've been a lifelong Kanye fan pretty much since I was like 10 years old, like half my life essentially or more. So the thing that's weird to me is like, when did this turn happen? Because with Kanye, having listened to his music since College Dropout and Late Registration, that was kind of the beginning of my, I guess, like political and social consciousness in the sense that as a fucking suburban kid, this was my purview into the world that I had no idea, and Kanye was speaking about all that stuff before anyone else was with Jesus Walks. And I mean, you can name pretty much all songs on those first two albums. Like they were just very ahead of their time. And even, during Hurricane Katrina, when he was like, George Bush doesn't care about black people. He's always said very controversial things, but usually they were true. Now it's like he's saying some outlandish shit that I just can't rock with personally. And I'm like, when did that change happen? I'm just kind of curious as to, I don't know. He was so like woke at the very beginning, and I just don't know what happened, like where he went off the rails, I guess.
I would think that with mental health comes like a break, especially being in the life of a celebrity. Like I think I saw in his interview, he was like, being bipolar is kind of cool because on one hand, I don't give a fuck what y'all have to think, what y'all think about me, because I'm going to say what I want to say. And it's going to be like my reality, whether it's like true or not. I think it just got to the point where it's just like Kanye was just tired of us, like telling him who to be, what to say. He's been talking about running for president in 2020 years ago. And I've been brought up to this moment, and I don't know why people are surprised. He said it and he still hasn't done it, but it's being talked about. And he's expressed himself in ways that to me, it's a little bit more authentic because he doesn't care what we think. You know what I mean? Like it might be him, it might be a version of him, but like he says like, I can be freely bipolar and there's nothing no one can do because I'm still going to make money, like basically.
Yeah. See, I think that's why to kind of connect all of it. That's why I've always looked up to him, like as a black man, POC or whatever. It's like having someone who is like you, who chooses not to live by the standards set by media, the standards set by the world, and breaks out of all of those modes, right? Like that to me is why he will always be an inspiration beyond like the stupid shit that he says. It's like him as like as a person or like a entity or a thing. It's like that is what's inspiring. That somebody was able to literally break the matrix and live outside the realm of what was expected from like a Black man who even did rap and hip hop, but then still had a different spin on it, challenge that, then challenge the world of fashion, then challenges whatever he's going into. And so for me, that's always like a sense of inspiration. But I think you brought up like this interesting notion of like, not notion, but the interesting topic of mental health. And I think that is the interesting thing to dive into, especially with like us here being involved with DEI, being involved in many conversations during this time. Like, how do you maintain, and how do you like, how do you maintain sanity? And so the open question, open door. But I think Kanye West being somebody who like was fighting and broke, essentially, is what we saw.
I think Kanye, and talking about him being bipolar, is a gift and a curse to the Black community, because it's known widely that Black people do not talk about mental health. Black men especially do not talk about mental health. We do not seek therapy. We don't even seek going to the doctor to get diagnosed. So we walk around with, mental health, issues, and a lot of times we don't even know we have them. So it is beautiful to see that Kanye is like, fuck it, like this is who I am, and I am going to reach like exponential limits because I have this. But I wish he would use that for good to talk about his mental health. Like, I'm a Black man who suffers from bipolar disorder. It is okay that other Black people suffer from mental health disabilities. Like, it is okay. And I feel like I would love for Kanye to use that for good. I am somebody who has suffered with depression and anxiety all of my adult life. And that was really hard to come to terms with, especially in my mid-20s. I had no idea what was going on. Therapy was something where I was just like, these people are just collecting a paycheck listening to me. And it wasn't until I was just like, this is my life. I doesn't matter who me being a Black woman, like I have to protect my mental health above all else in this society, because society right now is looking to try and break me. And so that's what I talk about with people. Like, I don't care that people are like, oh, you suffer from anxiety or depressed? Hell yeah. Like, hell yeah. So are millions, tens of millions of other Americans. So we use that for good to tell people like, it is okay to go get help. Kanye is just out and running. But Kanye is also a billionaire. I'm pretty sure he's a billionaire. Kanye has access to all the best doctors if he wants to use that. There are millions of Americans who do not have access to doctors and psychiatrists and therapists who can't even get the help.
I was gonna say, like, not even just access to doctors, but you talk about like mental health benefits. Like, it is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And like, to try to find a provider and then to get coverage for it, it is absolutely ridiculous. And it isn't like a quick solve. It's not like you're going to go see a doctor and they're going to be like, oh, this is what's wrong. And it's like, oh, have a treatment plan for, I don't know, a couple of months and you'll be fine. I know that there's varying levels, right? And there's varying degrees of like mental health issues. But yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think like in a lot of minority communities, it's not talked about enough. And it's like, it has a stigma to it in the sense that it's like, oh, why do you have to go talk to somebody? Like, why does somebody need to know your business? Why does somebody need to like, sort of like, why do people need to be involved in these situations? Right. And so, I mean, for me, I felt like growing up, I didn't grow up with that stigma because my mom was like seeking to get help. Like, I can remember being a kid and my mom going to see somebody, like talking to a therapist, right? And so for me, it was like, oh, that's like a normal thing. It's like, it's she's getting help, right? But now being an adult and reflecting back and seeing the reality of how my mom was handling her mental health issues, no, it was not. Like she did get some help, but not necessarily to the full extent that she could have, should have, to actually improve. And here's the thing, like, I didn't have an understanding of like what even like what a treatment plan would look like, and how you could really, you know, benefit from it. I mean, it's so much like confusing information out there. And unfortunately, there aren't enough conversations happening about it. I've seen, you know, some more, a little bit here and there, but still, I can't even remember being like, or like the stigma of like, you know, oh, you have to go talk to your crazy doctor, or I have to take crazy pills, or, you know, just because you have a mental health issue. And ultimately, it's just going to deteriorate, you know, like get worse, you know, and it may not be right away, but over time, yeah, it's completely detrimental in so many ways. I just can't even express.
I think I watched Kanye on David Letterman, and he talked about like how he does have access to all the fine quality doctors and things like that. And one thing that I do know about a lot of these doctors, especially dealing with Black health, is that the first thing they want to do is drug us and numb us. And so Kanye spoke on that. He said, like, I did take pills and I didn't feel human. I actually wanted to kill myself because I lost myself in these drugs, you know? And I think when we talk about having someone specialized in Black mental health, it comes to just like, where do you acknowledge my feelings, and when does me being bipolar come from a thing that you try to understand versus control? And so I think I understand him again when even on David Letterman, he was like, oh, you know, when people have a sprained ankle, they'd be like, oh, get off your ankle. Like they try to understand, you know what I mean? They don't put pressure on the ankle. He's like, but I have a sprained brain, and they push me and they try to make me crack worse than what it already is, versus letting me, you know, heal or kind of like solve it or go through it. And I think it just like, it makes it worse. And I saw something on Britney Spears because, you know, she's been trending lately for her being a level of like numb crazy, which she also has bipolar, and her life is now not any of her control. She's on drugs, medication drugs. She can't post what she wants, say what she wants, do what she wants. She has to live a life strictly under someone else's governance. And that's because that's how they deal with people now. Because when you're in the limelight, you have to either be numb to it all and not feel anything, or be just seen as this person that's uncontrollable. It's hard, yeah.
This whole topic is just like so, I don't want to say conflicting, but it's like you see so many different points of view. Like sometimes I just like, because you're absolutely right, Jojo, medication, like you take medication just to get you to baseline. And at that point, I'm just like, at one point I was just like, what did I do today? Like I had no idea what I did that day, because you're literally going through the motions just to get you from waking up to going back to bed.
Yeah.
But I'm a firm believer that there are people who just benefit from medication. There are people who just benefit from therapy, and there are people who benefit from both. And like therapy is just, I will never say like one bad thing about therapy. And like you brought up a great point about like Black therapists. One of my best friends who's white, she was the one who made the suggestion and sent me all these articles. She was like, girlfriend, I feel like that like the therapy, like therapist is a white dominated profession. So when Black people go to white therapists, yeah, we can talk about our problems all day, but there's still a level that they don't identify with us.
Absolutely.
So you need to go find a Black therapist. Instantly, she sent me a website, put in my zip code, bam, like at least 8 Black female therapists popped up here in San Diego. Like one is accepting appointments, and you know, her and I, we've been playing phone tag, but I'm like, hell yeah. Like now I can talk to somebody who gets me on a level that no other therapist will get. And
sorry,
I want you to know you don't have to take medication. Like you don't have to, like therapy, it's going to take a long time. Therapy is not a just year-long thing. Like therapy takes years, but I mean, you can get better through therapy if you want. You have to make therapy work.
So here's the thing, and also like being advocates for ourselves with our doctors, you know, and asking the right questions and knowing what to ask, etc. To that point, Lindsay, if you are looking for a therapist that is a person of color and they happen to not be covered in your plan, you can request an exception from your healthcare provider to have them covered, because them being a person of color or somebody that you can identify with, and I would say even a minority, because to be honest, like there's a lot more things that are relatable for me as a minority with a Black person than it would be with a white person, because they just ain't gonna get it. They just will not understand the struggles because they don't have to face the same things, and so they don't have the context to help you in the way that you really need.
Yeah, and that's definitely a good point as far as, you know, all of us here being POCs. And I guess even for me, speaking from personal experience, is the barrier to entry is so fucking intense. So in Filipino culture, and kind of, you know, Wani was alluding to this as well, but if you say you're seeking therapy, you're immediately called, oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're this, and that. There's like a stigma attached to it. So that's one thing. As a man in society, in American society or Western society or whatever, you're told, oh, you're going to therapy, you're weak, you know, like suck it the fuck up. So that's another thing. And, you know, also to everyone's point, looking for a POC therapist. So I found one. I sought out therapy once, and it was like $50 a session. I went to the first session. It was great. But after that, I'm like I can't pony up that kind of money every week, you know? So there are just so many things that, and we talk about, you know, systemic racism and things like that, that are preventing us from actively working on our mental health, that it's like what even is the point? Because it's so fucking difficult, you know?
Yes.
I think going back to like Erwin's question is like, during all of this, like how are we upholding our own personal mental health? And as someone who's gone to therapy, and I had a Black woman who was great. Basically, she told me, break up with him, sis. And I was like, cool. And then I decided to go on through life, you know, by myself. It's like when I think about waking up every day, it just feels embedded in me to just push through. And it does, like, you have these moments of like where you crack, and it doesn't have to be extreme where you like are just depressed, you know what I mean? Like, but you can feel like you don't want to get out of bed. You can feel like you don't want to talk. You can have like an attitude. You can push away your loved ones. All I know is like during this time, I just felt like no matter what I'm going through, like I have to keep going. And so I also commend and show up for the people who also feel the exact same way. There is no like, for me, there is no breaks. There's no like downtime. There's no, you know, giving up. It's I have to show up. And when I hear like white people say like, oh, you know, we don't want to be, you know, looked against because we don't want to be embarrassed or feel ashamed, I'm like, well, you get that privilege to do that. We don't. I still have to show up whether my feelings are hurt, whether you ghost me or like, you know, choose to listen to me or try to demean me. Like I still have to fight the good fight, and there is no other option. So we asked today like how I am pushing through, how I'm doing. I'm like, I'm numb. It's just being numb. And going through a therapist, I feel like they'll help me, you know, figure it out and navigate through it. But at the end of the day, like, well, like Eric said, like I can't afford it. I can't afford $50 a week. You know what I mean? Like I just have to go off of my own personal feelings and like pushing through it, because that's just my reality.
I hear you, Jojo, but at the same time, you can't afford not to take care of yourself, because that's like saying, you know, and I hear what you're saying, because I'm with you. I push through no matter what. Like you have to, like you figure it out, right? One way or another, because I feel like I have too many people depending on me. I feel like so much more is expected of me, etc. But nonetheless, like even if you don't make it a priority, I mean, I think like not taking care of yourself in that way just like sets you up for like really detrimental long-term effects. Like, and I think about this since the moment I became a parent, in the sense that like everything that I do speaks volumes to my kids about what they're going to do, right? Because everything that I do is an example for them of what, like, you know, like what's good, what's not. And ultimately, yeah, when we become adults, then you start to think for yourself and you start to form your own ideas. But again, like, you know, I think about the fact that like, as a kid, even though, let's say culturally, people thought therapy, or I would hear comments about therapy and crazy pills and so forth and so on, you know, in my mind, therapy was okay because my mom went and she didn't, and she was doing it to take care of herself, where I could have had a very different idea had she not done that. And I get it, you know, $50 is expensive, etc. Or, I mean, you know, I'm not telling you what to do with your budget, but but it's money well spent, you know?
It absolutely adds up. That's when, you know, we should encourage people to start exhausting resources. Like, you know, have we started to dive into groups in our own community? Like, are there groups out there who talk about mental health that's free? Like, is there stuff going on at the community center? Are there, you know, because I mean, I hate to say this, but I would not recommend going through like a health plan therapist, because they're seeing so many people that you only be able to see them once every like 2 months. But like we as POCs can definitely dive into like the internet. It's a great tool to find out like what is going on in our community that might be free, that might be at low cost. You know, are there support groups out there to help us? Because yeah, $50 a week, $100 a week, that's a lot to swallow. For most people, I'm gonna say anybody, for most people. So I mean, let's empower each other to dig into what we have in our own community.
That's what I mean. Like, I feel like I don't necessarily have to go to a therapist to seek solace. And it's like going through breathing exercises, meditating. I'm not great at it, but when we did it at basic, like I found it so relieving in a lot of ways, because I'm just like, I'm digging into myself. And I feel like a lot of times therapists will make you look into yourself anyway. And it's just like being comfortable with my own voice. And my voice is telling me like, keep fucking fighting. And I'm okay with that. You know, like I know that I'm built for this. A lot of people aren't, or, you know, you could be like a Kanye where I might have a point where I actually break. But for right now, like I have the momentum. I have the willpower to do this. And but to your point, when you were absolutely correct, like I also have to set predominance for my child who's growing up in a world, and she's already like 10 times stronger than me. I said this all the time. And I want to make sure that she understands it's okay to be vulnerable, that it's okay to be weak, it's okay to be sad, but at the same time, no one is going to be sad for her. And that's just the reality.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Question for the group, and this is something I've kind of been ruminating on for the past few months, I suppose, is do you think you need to be quote unquote like neurodivergent to see a therapist, or do you think it helps everyone? And I have an answer in my mind, but I kind of want to hear your guys' take on it.
I think it helps everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I think no matter what, it helps. Like, just like going to the gym can help everybody. Just like daily exercise and moving your body and all of that stuff is good and healthy. To me, a therapist is literally mental exercise. And it's like going to see a trainer to unlock the ability to have that introspection and healthy introspection, to be able to like, one, understand how your childhood affected who you are now. Like all of these things are hyper important. Again, even in the notion of like, how do you truly move forward in life? You need to understand the impact of all of the micro things that happen throughout your life in order to fully unlock your true potential. Right. So to me, it's good for everybody, whether you think you're like on top of everything or whatever it is. It's healthy. And I think that's what, because even right now, like we were talking about, like Kanye West, like, and Kid Cudi made it okay, sort of, within POC community to talk about it. But I still feel like there's that bridge that needs to be jumped or crossed, where it's like, it's more than okay to talk about once you realize you have issues. It's actually just okay. to view it as an everyday like thing. And I think somebody like if you look at like Will Smith and Jada, even though they're going through whatever that stuff is, but it's like if you look at them, they seem like there's like this healthy understanding of conversation and dialogue and trying to dig into yourself with the help of a professional, which ultimately allows you to over time dig into yourself just all the time. So
Is that what he said? Like
mine.
Yeah,
what he said. That was phenomenal. I mean, yeah.
I mean, I would agree in the sense that, like, if you think about it, the way that humans function, like physically and emotionally, right? Like I always think about like becoming a parent and how like you don't get a roadmap or you don't get a handbook, and you're just like, oh boy, now shit really got real, you know, like when it's like your responsibility to figure out and to direct and to keep this person alive that you created. You know, it's like when you have those moments of like you don't get a handbook, like if speaking to somebody like a professional that has more insight into how the human brain works and how you know, we can better understand and process the emotions and the feelings that we feel, like I don't see that as a bad thing. I see it as only a good thing. So
yeah. And I was like, even a lot of the books that I mainly read, they're not self-help, but they're all like books that try to like dive into how the human brain works. And I just find that really interesting because it helps me understand how I could interact or how I should interact with other people. It helps me understand how I'm going to respond and maybe when I shouldn't respond, just because there's a understanding of how the brain works and how other people's will perceive versus like all of those things. So to me, like Wani's saying, is anything that helps you like understand and unlock your own brain. Our brains are hella complicated and complex and powerful as hell. Like we work in marketing and advertising, and our job at the end of the day, past all of the data and past all of the other stuff, is to like prick and like touch something in your mind that stirs something in your heart. That is like hard as fuck to do. And it's crazy that your mind can like make that leap to like touch your heart, but it does. And so to me, anything that helps us understand that more is important to dive into.
Guys, I think we're going to get kicked off. We're still having meeting issues. We're trying to figure it out on the back end, but we might have to wrap this up.
Right. But if the screen goes dark, you
know why.
No, yeah. You know, Joe had to use the bathroom.
Oh, I don't actually. We didn't run long enough for me to have to go pee. So,
no, was there any like questions from people?
We have less than a minute, but everyone's just saying how much of an important discussion this is, more or less. So,
which means we need to get mental health benefits covered.
Yes.
That's what we need, people.
I wish we could come back on.
Vote. Get out and vote.
Vote. Go to your therapist.
Go to your therapist.
Whether you need it or not.
Find support groups if you can't afford a therapist, because there's other ways.
Absolutely.
And give me my money party for 2020.
Also, I want my reparations.
What about rent? What about the rent is too damn high?
Exactly.
Yeah, bring that part.
Lower rent.